think I understand your question well. There's a few things. First of all, for some of us, a full retreat from kind of modern life is maybe the right thing. But I think that's a very, very small minority. And so that should only be the answer from like a very deep calling. So, and we can never really know what the calling is. We can never, if we have any certainty around the calling, it's always going to likely be thought-based. And so therefore it's identification and fear-based. So that's kind of like to put aside the sense of maybe you retreating fully, moving away. So I'm kind of interpreting when you're saying moving away, it's kind of away from something that is actually calling you. What I would think, again, interpreting what you're saying, what is your calling is not to retreat to a monastery or something like that, or to, the suburban small town or whatever I can imagine that retreat would be. But there is a way to, for example, do this work intensely, but have it kind of be mixed with, let's say, more modern life. And one very obvious way is actual retreats, but it's, with a time frame of whatever it is, 3 days, 4 days a week. And then putting those in the year at convenient times with a mix of teachers. So that's something I just generally would recommend. But to your question, I think there's something deeper. So I'm kind of addressing the less deep first. And there's a bit of a contradiction in desire here, and I think it has to do, like you're pulled, and I think it has to do with a misunderstanding, which is very, very natural, and it's also a misunderstanding that happens in a lot of more conventional teachings in spirituality, and it has to do with the value of the calm mind, and the purpose of it, or the gain that comes from it. So a quiet mind, a calm mind, an empty mind. That, my understanding, which is all I can speak to, is a consequence. It's not a way. It's not a means. And so the quiet mind and the relaxed. You also talked about approaching things in a relaxed manner. That again is a consequence and not a form or a way. Obviously, we can try to be calm and we can approach things with the most calm that we have. But if you listen to the desire to have a calm mind, the desire to calm, and at the same time what I hear is listen to your intuition that you're called to face something that's going to aggravate your mind and your body mind so aggravate your body mind is like you're going to have a lot of thoughts that are not easy, and you're going to have sensations that are not easy, which is the absence of relaxation. And so am I getting that right? The general direction is a lot more than you think. So the body mind can handle a lot more than we think. And so a lot of this work has to do with coming to those edges and realizing I've gone through what I thought would be the end of me, or what I thought would break me, and I am still here. and I can't strongly emphasize enough how big that gap is. Then there's ways in which we can leverage that in practices, right? And how that those are useful. And there's a lot of practices that are designed for that. But what I would say is, by going straight towards what puts your mind at dis-ease or into stress, your body into stress, and persevering, then you will learn the calm mind. You will have a consequence of a calm mind. You have the side effect of a relaxed body. Not by the attachment to the relaxed body and the desire of, that's a regressive pull. It's like the pull to not leave the house because it's dangerous outside. And so that I would treat kind of more often than not, like 90% of the time, as a regressive pull, and then learn when there's a call that I need to listen to that has to do with resting, has to do with kind of a balance, but we have to lean much further into the discomfort. Yeah, I mean, again, generalizing, I would say yes, with always the generalization having exceptions. But yes, because the piece that we look for is not the absence of discomfort. It's not the absence of thought. It's a piece that is present in the deepest discomfort and in the, let's say, most stirred mind. And that can only be seen when there is discomfort or when there is a disturbed mind. There, at a level, yes. And at a deeper level, it's a true longing, but it's misrepresenting what it's longing for. And that's the longing for peace. But it's not in the calm mind, it's not in the calm body, relaxed body. That's where the confusion is. But at the deeper level, it's a very beautiful calling. But so what I'm here kind of offering is, what's the way to arrive at that? And the way is through the listening to the calling of life, which is what you want to do, what you really want to, your desire in this life, what's calling you. And I think you were addressing that with like your intuition, your heart intuition, right? Well, the answer is you can't know so your question was, how can I know which is? The answer is you can't know, but you can experiment and explore, and through trial and error you can learn. And so it's like, how do I know if I prefer an apple to an orange, but I haven't tasted either? And so, as a metaphor, right? Like you have tasted sitting to meditate, you have tasted work, but at another level, you're contemplating a bigger thing, which is facing work in a bigger way, exploring meditation in a bigger way, and that is only through the experience of it. But I do have a sense that it's so likely that the calling of the monastery is an avoidance of life in a sense. Because if I were to say the peace that you aspire to gain in a monastery, you can find in work faster, do you still want to go to the monastery? And maybe the answer is yes. There's some. Sorry? Yeah, and you appropriately call that a fear. And so it's the fear of failure, fear of not being able. But there's one aspect which is how I want to feel, and another is what do I want to do. And so, for example, the monastery can, if you were saying in a very genuine way, you have very little calling from modern life, and just the beauty of the monastery, of whichever type of monastery, and the scriptures, and just a life sitting, and there's just a calling that's just the beauty of it, and nothing else really interests you, then it would be a different conversation where you would try that out, and maybe 2 years later you're done or not. But it's different from this. What you're presenting to me is something that's more of the flavor of a calling to retreat versus want to go for what you want, with the fears of failure. The fears of failure in two senses. One, maybe I achieve the lifestyle I want, but I still feel this suffering and the discomfort. And so it's a failure of how I want to feel. Um, you can very much do that, which is what you said, use the environment, use the experience to get what you need, which is, you spoke about peace, beauty. And so, but what you're describing is what only is available now, here. And so that is what you can discover, is that it's in work, it's in the monastery. And so it's not seen because it's not seen now. It's not seen in what the reality of this is now. I mean, what matters there is, what are you going to work for, so that you are following a deeper desire. So it's not just about going to work, it's about what's the deeper desire, what's the deeper calling, aside from the deep longing for peace. And so that's what you're listening to, and work is just a means towards that. Yeah, and that's the way is to listen to your heart and what you just expressed very beautifully. And I'm the question I'm going at is more specifically around what's the answer to the question. Like, what's the answer to the question, what do I want, if I listen to the heart and the heart alone? And so, and not for it to be an answer that's like, okay, here's the answer, and I write it down, and that's forever the answer. It's a constant asking, listening. And it's a constant asking, listening, and discerning, oh, this is fear again. Oh, no, this is really a heart calling. And it's actually, it's not, the answer isn't to listen to the heart. The answer is, what does the answer to the question, what does the heart say? Otherwise, it's a circle, right? What I want is to listen to the heart, which is saying to listen to the heart, but what is the heart saying? Because it's more specifically around life, around abundance, it's around a radical living. And so it's what, if you have, which you do, have the power to create a life, and if you strip all your fears and sense of limitation about what that life could be, and you trust all of your abilities and potential and intelligence and wisdom and develop it fully, what is that life? What does it look like?
Right. Right.
As opposed to, I don't know that I can, I want peace because that's too hard, and I contemplate withdrawing. And that's like beautiful because it's a mystery. You can't know the answer. The answer is, I speak of this as a co-creation. It's like a dance, but you're on both sides dancing. You're listening and you're responding and you're creating, and there's a co-creation with this. At this level, it's co-creation. So you don't, if you're dancing and you want to go to that corner of the room, but the partner you're dancing with makes a move that kind of sends you the other way, you listen and you respond. And so that's the kind of constant creation that is possible. But always listening to the heart, and always in this like calling from what is beautiful, what is it that is loving, beautiful, and the greatest thing you can imagine going for. And the answer to that could be simple. It could be a monastery, I don't know that, but that's for you to discover. Yeah, yes and no, because there isn't that future moment. There is only this, and so it's around the relationship with your imagination and your creativity in every sense, and that is only possible now. But you can imagine the next week, or you can imagine the next 10 years. And then it's now what you're moving with, what you're dancing with, as you move in this moment. So it's not like compartmentalizing, well, I have to deal with this decision of this week or this month, and then in a future I will contemplate a decision that has to do with the future. in a sense, you have to contemplate all of that now, because it's only now. And then the contemplation of this week and the imagination of this week and this month is in touch and connected with the deeper imagination around this life, the whole of it in this moment, which is only real in this moment, with the understanding that there is a function of time appearing, and that there is what happens in this relative reality where the body ages and things happen and evolve in the way they do. But the calling from the heart is now, and it's the answer to any direction at any level. So to not risk postponing what's important for what is urgent. And then you can deal with urgent things, but not if they're completely in opposition to what's important. Yeah, and the opposition of that, which you express in the beginning of your question, is purely a mental construct that they are exclusive, that you can get either this or that.
Right.
And in fact, you can get peace of mind with your mind going crazy. And so, yeah, and this is what we do here, and what I talk about, because you can start to see that the mind is just like a kaleidoscopic appearance, and it's beautiful and it's useful, and a lot of it is not very important. And the more we can see, which is what I point to more in the meditations, the more we can see the nature of mind, the empty nature of mind, the absence of objects within mind, then all of the problems that come with the appearance of thought dissolve. Or let's say the absence of peace, because we equate the peace with the absence of thought, or with the absence of a busy mind. And in fact, we are the ones stirring that pot. It comes from what we talk about as resistance. And so we have a kind of pre-existing belief about how things should be. And it's kind of an absolute position. It's a position of how things are, they should not be. And this could be in very subtle, tricky ways. And so with that attitude, which actually it's like an arrogance of I know how things should be. And so from that attitude, there is a closedness. There's a certain no to what is. And the only way we can keep this going, the only way we can have this appearing is with a lot of thought. Because all of that only exists in the mind. The more thoughts you need in order to resist. Because resistance is an illusion. It's like, try to not hear the sound of my words as I speak. How are you? How well is that going? Is that working? It's exactly that. That's exactly what we do. And the only way to resist the sound of my words as I speak is by creating more noise in your thinking. And the sound of my voice as I speak is a metaphor to life. It's to everything that is appearing. And so once you realize it's impossible, it not only is impossible, it only creates trouble to try. And everything changes when you stop trying. When you stop trying for what is to not be. And ultimately what is that should not be is also an interpretation of what is. It's not what really is. So we first interpret something, which is a negative interpretation, and then we have a problem with a negative interpretation. I think it's prior to that. I mean, sure, it doesn't help that everybody around us is doing that and we grew up in that, but I don't think the cause is just the parenting. I think it's kind of built in the human mind. And there maybe are, some metaphysical reasons. I could philosophize or spiritualize, or it's fun, but I don't think that's practical right now. It's just what is. It's what we do, what happens, how the mind works.